And we start off today in what can only be described as rural Dolphinholme. And I've come to a farm to see how the last couple of months have impacted this community, a different one from all of the ones that we've been to so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Cindy and what Cath have in store for us. Have you got the country farm music to go for that?
Oh, definitely. Here we go.
I'm here with Cath and with Cindy, neither of whom told me I should have worn better shoes this morning. Now, it'll be interesting to hear from their perspectives how things have been different. So, Cath, tell me how things have impacted you over the last couple of months.
Well, I think really that a lot of the impact came from when we were first sort of put into lockdown. We've got the children at home, both of them. Running a farm is a 24-hour job. The children are a 24-hour job. And you mix those two things together and that becomes a bit of a melting pot for quite a lot of shouting and quite a lot of stress, me and my husband and me and the children, and everything becomes a lot more fractious, I think. Also with that we had a letter from our milk buyer telling us that we needed to reduce production because they were having trouble collecting the milk from the farms. So we then had to make very difficult decisions about how we were going to reduce that milk, because they don't just switch off. They're not robots. They're milked with robots, incidentally, but they aren't robots themselves. And, you know, we had to make some quite difficult decisions about which cows would be able to stay here and which cows wouldn't be able to stay here and inevitably would have to leave the farms.
What do you do, or what can you do that helps you relieve some of that pressure?
Well, I think talking's always good. I mean, I know Zoom isn't the same, is it? But everybody's been using Zoom, and that has helped a bit. We've started up with some farmer meetings now, so the vets have actually been really good, and they've sort of brought in some meetings for farmers to kind of chat to each other and about a specific subject, but they always go off that subject. But I think talking's always good. I think when you find out that everybody else is feeling the same and everybody else is having the same struggle, it does help. And
Cindy, you minister in this environment. So how do you do that? So what is it that you do differently that others might not get?
I think the thing I would want to say to begin with is that we sometimes forget that farmers are key workers, and that actually during all of this pandemic they've been out doing their jobs whatever the weather because they need to make sure we've got food on our tables. I think that's a really important thing to say. And so during the pandemic, particularly during lockdown, I was ringing round, obviously not so much able to get round, but ringing round. But isolation, as Cath said, is a real big worry amongst farmers, where there's a very high suicide rate, but also we have a lot of elderly people living in quite isolated locations as well, who are perhaps not savvy with the internet, etc. And so keeping in touch with them was a particular challenge, actually.
What would you say rural ministry will look like? How will it look different to what it looked like before? How will it have been impacted and maybe even changed by the last 9 months?
I mean, it's very interesting talking to some of my friends, other colleagues in the deanery and in the diocese who are perhaps in towns. I know they've had a big response from recording stuff and putting it online and YouTube and even streaming for some of them. That's more of a challenge for us, really, and it hasn't, the stuff that we've done online has been, mostly it's been Cath's generation that have accessed it. Our older people, again, haven't accessed it. So one of the things we're looking at doing is putting together packs that can go out regularly, which allows us to check on people, but with sort of weekly prayers or orders of service that we can do at home, really. And the other thing we're looking at is the Church of England phone-in service that they've been running. You can also do as a parish or as a benefice in our case. So we're looking at perhaps how we might use that in the future as well, so that those that are not able to or don't feel safe coming to church can actually access things that way.
And I've got one last question for you, Cath. We haven't asked everybody this. In fact, I think you'd be the first person that we have asked. But I think it would be appropriate to ask, what can we pray for our farmers, for our farming communities?
It's like you have a faith, don't you? You have a faith in God. And you also have a faith in yourself. And when you're tested, like you're being tested, that faith in yourself disappears quite a lot, actually, and it becomes, you question whether you're doing things right, why you're doing things, actually, in fairness. And so, yeah, I've questioned my faith in myself quite a lot, and I suppose having faith in God has then found me the strength to dig down a little bit more and carry on, kind of thing. And that's probably something I've noticed maybe more over the time when we're sort of being on our own, because you don't notice, do you, when everyone else is around you. And I suppose from the cliche things like good weather and, you know, all those things, because you do need that, and that is a really important thing. Actually, strength, I think, you know, you can pray for strength just to keep you going, because quite frankly, you want to throw the towel in more often than not, actually.
Yeah. Have we got any long gloves?
I have got lots of long gloves. Are you going to do it for one side?
No, I'm not going to do it. They've made me do a lot of things for this, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Not doing what, sir?
I'm not assisting a cow in giving birth.
Why not?
Because it's messy.
What do you think we're here for?
Isn't it?
This is dry clean only, big man. Having assisted in the birthing of probably about 12 calves now, I think I've come to know something of the pressures felt by farmers. But in all seriousness, that was quite an eye-opening conversation for me, coming to know something of the pressures felt by farmers, which they're not alone in feeling, but are unique to this setting. So I'm really glad that I came, and really glad I asked for what we could pray about, because that was quite revealing